Greetings. Today is another show about gardener's economics. Specifically, consumer versus producer. Important distinction. The other day I was having lunch with an old friend of mine, and the whole conversation moved over towards shopping in our society and the stuff that we buy. And I had told him, I am so tired of being referred to as a consumer. It offends me that when we say that, we talk about, we're consumers, Well, truth is, I consume to survive. I do not survive to consume. A very important distinction there. I am not the guy that goes running out to Walmart because it's a Black Friday to see what I can get my hands on. I'm not interested in that. I'm not a very greedy person. There are very few things in this world that I actually want. There are some that I probably need, and I usually get those. So I really do. I have an attitude when people in power and people in business tend to refer to me, at least personally, as a consumer in our society. Anyway, so when I said that to my friend, he turned around, he looked at me like, hey, Bill, I thought you were smarter than that. You're not a consumer, you're a producer. And I said, oh. He says, yeah, you produce your own energy. You don't even have to fuel your car. He says, you produce music, you produce videos for people, you produce ideas, you produce garden designs, you produce fruit, you produce vegetables, on and on. He was going with this, and of course all of that also then boils down to the fact that I also produce my own economy. And so I took it to heart, and I said, every once in a while, some of my good friends will lay something on me about myself that I really didn't realize. And so I've been pondering that ever since. And I really like the idea of being a producer in our society rather than a consumer. I live in a capitalistic society. Money rules, man, like they say. Money talks, and the stuff from the bulls walks, And so I've had to learn to play the game. It's the only way through this life, is you learn how to be a good capitalist. Otherwise, you don't survive here. You're at the mercy of either the government and its social programs, or you'll be at the mercy of your employer. To quote a term from Roland Kirk, the great, late Roland Kirk, jazz musician. He called it volunteer slavery. Now, it doesn't matter what color your skin is when it comes to volunteer slavery, because most of us engage in it. I've been there before. Now, if you're lucky enough that you're doing a job, well, say, for instance, maybe you work for Google in Silicon Valley. Well, the way them folks are treated, you are hardly a slave. Okay? It's a pretty good job. On the other hand, some of us, have gone into being a doctor, a nurse, and other things, firemen, whatever, things that we feel deeply about. Okay, so that these are jobs that we might have been wanting to do for nothing anyway. So you're a lucky person if that's the sort of employment you actually have. In my case, I've had a few really good employers. Thumbs up to a few of them there that I have worked for. But they were the exception rather than the rule. In general, most of the jobs I put in, especially in American industry, were very much volunteer slavery. And you get that way by being a consumer. Okay? It is the producers that put you into the spot of being the consumer, where then you have to basically ask for everything it is that you need there. Well, having turned my life around to being where I was a producer, I realized that it actually liberated me from the whole cycle of volunteer slavery. Once you turn this story around and you stop being a consumer, suddenly you'll see that you begin to produce almost anything and everything that you actually ever needed in your life. And you don't have to hardly ask anybody else for it. In my case, almost everything comes to me. Now, I've set it up that way, because I don't want to go out there looking for it. I don't get on the road to go commute. I don't go hardly anywhere searching for anything. Almost everything comes here to this spot for me. And it is basically done by cutting the strings. You cut the strings that are attached to you because they're almost like fishing hooks, man. They're stuck in you all over, and they're economic pulls that keep you tied, whether it's the bank and the mortgage, the children, the student loans, and blah, 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 the car loan, the credit cards, and also our own consumptive greed. Most Americans tend to follow shiny dimes down sidewalks when they're rolled. The latest Apple smartphone comes out. Oh, must have it. The latest big screen TV. Gotta have it. Gotta have it. We become impulsed on so many of these shiny things that are dangled in front of us because the producers know that the consumers are hungry. When we look at our lives, and we take most of the basic things that we require, food, energy, money, then of course there's the things you can't buy, like love and all that. We'll stay out of that part of it too. Some of the hard, basic physical things we need. For most of us, it really is, domicile. We need a place to sit down and go to sleep at night. In other words, a house. Some sort of a residence is required for shelter. Most of us need some form of transportation, whether it be public, bicycles, motorcycles, scooters, cars, all the way up. We also, in our society today, definitely require energy. It's a major factor. And then we require income. Okay. We must have income, or you won't be able to acquire anything that you need, let alone what you might want. And so, if you look at those four, energy, shelter, income, did I forget food? Probably. Yeah, anyway, you have a list of it's a laundry list of stuff that all of us require to be comfortable in this society in our lives. So the question is, how do we acquire those? What is the system that we use to bring them into our lives? Well, if you're relying on the system to be able to provide it for you, then you're going to have to play by those rules, and those rules will put you into the category of consumer, all right, with all of its pluses and minuses. There really aren't a whole lot of pluses to that, frankly. On the other hand, you can turn the table on the whole thing. You can look at these things that you need, and you can say, well, can I produce them for myself? Question, can I produce them for more than myself? In my case, many of the things that I produce are definitely for far more people than just me. I mean, as at 10:30 today, the panels on the roof, even with clouds, got enough sun that the power wall's full. It won't take any more juice. She's charged the max. So everything is going straight up the grid. Last I checked, at the rate of about 7 kilowatt per hour, it's going up the grid. And so somebody else is using that power right now. I charged the car yesterday. I got nowhere else to put it, so I'm sharing it. It comes to food. All right, that's how I got to be the Green Garden guy, right? Long, long time ago. I grew up in families of farmers and serious heavy gardeners where we all grew food for ourselves and for each other and did not necessarily have to go to supermarkets to be able to feed ourselves. And that just became a habit in my life. It's persisted. I like it. I can't get out of that habit because I'll tell you what, there ain't nobody out there hardly that produces food as good as the stuff that I can pull right out of my own soil here. It's nothing else. It's a fresh factor. But I also work with variety, too. I want varieties that taste good, as a gardener, not just ship well and things like this. And so I have much higher quality food, and the food that I have is then also sold outward to other people. And so I am producing for other consumers. The energy, as I said, was being produced, and other consumers are buying it back from the power company. When it comes to income, right? I don't work for Google. I don't work for Ford. I don't work for Amazon. I don't have to deal with any of their employment problems or anything that they may have. They work for me because I'm invested in things. When I look out at the world of high finance, I see all kinds of real simple things out there. I see things that I use. I see manufacturers of automobiles. I see, well, Google, for instance. I wouldn't be here talking to you if it wasn't for them. Amazon, I do a large part of my shopping that way. As I said, I don't really get in a car and go too many places that I don't want to go anyway. Shopping is not one of the things I like to do. A whole lot of the things that I purchase actually come to me via the internet and UPS, the post office, and so on. And so I use Amazon as a consumer. I use Google as a consumer. I use Ford Motor Company, for instance, as a consumer, but I also own part of them because they're products that I use that benefit me in my life. I find it really easy to understand what are these businesses about, and so on. And so I lay money on them. I mean, as being a person who has generated his own economy, I have money flowing at me in a steady stream, a steady basis. I've designed my economy that way. And so that means I have excess, it piles up, and so I have to turn around and I reinvest it so that it grows more. So I place it on companies that I like, services I use, things I believe in, from robot vacuum cleaners to you name it. And so I don't work for them, they work for me in a sense. I'm a part owner. When you're on a stock market, you own part of a company, you are part of the ownership. And it's far more profitable, usually, if you've done this right, to be on that end than to be on the other end. Yeah, and as far as income is concerned, I have several shows in the past that I've done on this. And so if you have any questions about it, I put in the comments. I can direct you back to some of the green economics shows, investing like a gardener, that I have done in the past. But, in short, the philosophy I use is what I call the gumball machine philosophy. In other words, a gumball machine takes a nickel or a dime at a time, right? But it keeps taking nickels and dimes, nickels and dimes, nickels and dimes, dropping in there in a steady stream, daily, after day, week after week. And, a 10-cent purchase, 10 of them is $1, right? And so on. And so it adds up. And most of the things that I do actually work that way. They are set up so that I have an investment here with a dividend that, I get ad revenue checks from Google. They're significant enough for the channel, and it drops in once a month into my bank account. I don't have anything to do with it except I keep making videos, but other than that, it just falls in there. And it's these types of things, okay, that liberate you from volunteer slavery. If you can set up gumball machines, and even a gumball machine line works just as well. Vending machines are a great idea, frankly. If you want to become financially independent, get yourself some vending machines. But you take the same idea and extrapolate it, okay? And so anything that you don't have to necessarily watch every day, or you don't have to commute to get there, that will be generating income for you, frees you from volunteer slavery and basically makes you a net producer of income in the society rather than one who consumes for income or trades your body. Yeah, it's bourbon. Mm-hmm. How do you think I come up with these ideas? Actually, it's tea. One of the reasons that I'm actually here saying this, trying to spread this idea amongst people, is I realize the frustration and I understand what it's like to feel trapped. I have been there, economically trapped in the past. I have been trapped in crummy jobs that were killing my soul, that to this day I probably still occasionally have nightmares about. at the same time thinking how grateful I was that I could actually that I have this job, because jobs are scarce and the economy's not good here where I live, and I'm so lucky to have this miserable stinking job with a lot of bosses that are yahoos and treat me like crap, and there's no future and blah 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 blah. I've been there. I know what that feels like, you know, and I also know what the other side of the coin's like, and I know it's possible to change this. I have personally changed this, and the beautiful part of it really is that when you're on the consuming side of things and you're out there, you know, with your hand out, going, "Come on, you know, give me something," that comes to an end real quick. You know, as soon as the boss decides that they're not making enough money, or you're not producing right, or the bean counters say that figures are off, blah, 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 you're out the door. I've been there before. That's happened to me. And then you're going to have to scramble. Well, if you're real lucky, you get the breaks, you may scramble in the right directions, and you'll find that you can bring about your own economy. And when you begin to do that, if it's structured well, it doesn't go away. You know, nobody can fire me right now. You guys can stop watching the channel, maybe, so what? It's only one of the things that I do, and if I stopped doing it tomorrow, it would affect my life, because there's a lot of contact that comes from this camera. So much happens because of it. A large portion of my produce and vegetable sales happen because of this camera. A large portion of my nursery stock is sold because of this camera. The seeds that I sell, again, this camera is really what propels so much of that today, you know, because it gives me the exposure out there on the internet across the planet. People see me here locally. They see me in Azerbaijan or wherever else there's an internet connection, and they can understand the language I'm speaking. Yes, you know, but I give myself away because, again, some of those gumball machines are, you know, sales of tropical seeds. The nursery out here. You know, I don't see people in the nursery every day. It comes and goes. Some days I have, you know, I'm overwhelmed. Some days I get custom grows from people, which are quite profitable. I like them. You know, other times I go a week with nobody. There were just the other day I did put an ad on Craigslist offering buy two, get one. So it's 33% off. Green Garden Guy sale here in the nursery. I'm sorry, no, it is not for shipped plants. You have to walk in here. But anybody here on the island who's listening, I'm running a sale this week. Business has been slow. I thought maybe one good way to adjust it was to give a discount. So, you know, but again, I give myself away. These are the little things that I use. There's a lot of them, actually. You know, it was this camera was what brought the Hawaii Food Basket into my presence. There, it's a video on cabbages. Sent them my way, and ever since, now wow. I'm telling you, this summer has been a lot of work because of the food basket, because they want to buy this, they want to buy that, they want to know, can you do this, can you do that? Yeah, I can do that, right? So, you know, I grew several crops of sweet corn for them, crops of cabbages, lots of cucumbers, lilikoi, pineapples. That was a big one this year. For the first time in my life, I picked 50 pounds of cherry tomatoes. I don't know if I ever want to do that again. I have not counted the amount of poundage of sweet and hot peppers that I've been picking. You know, my right hand is actually swelled up over my left, I think, from all of this, from all the picking. This week, there haven't been any gardening videos at all. There haven't been any gardening videos for 2 weeks. Why? I've had enough for a little while. So I'm going to talk about electric cars. I want to talk about photovoltaics. I want to talk about hiking Kilauea Iki. I want to talk about, hey, a gardener's economics. Anything else but tomatoes, please? Trust me, it's been really successful. Okay, really successful. And I think getting checks every week from Food Basket too. And I retired years ago now. because I set these things up in such a way that even though I'm in retirement, it doesn't stop. They just keep running. I mean, I do suspect that I could be dead in the grave for 10 years and there'll still be people asking me questions on YouTube. Oh, I'm going to have to make sure I put somebody in charge of closing down all my seed sales sites and all that junk the day I fall over so we don't get people trying to order seeds when I'm dead. You know, luckily, I figured out as far as all my finances, investments, and things like that in the market, where that's going to go to. So there are happy people out there if I happen to die on some of this money that will end up with it. You know, there are people sometimes who actually think, well, Bill, he's loaded. This is not true. I came from overt poverty. Okay, I'm pretty close to as poor as most Americans ever get. In my youth, in the 50s, came from a family where we only had mom. And mom had to work full time. Had to team up at the grandparents and live with them because we were, so poor that we really couldn't survive on our own without their help. I mean, I remember in Chicago a potbelly stove heating the place in the winter, and me and Grandpa used to go out and collect pallet wood in the alleys and bust it up and throw it in that stove with whatever coal he could find to try to keep ourselves warm in a Chicago winter. Don't come from a rich background. My life has been steadily, slowly heading uphill economically. And perhaps that is maybe what propelled me to think creatively about how do you get your head above water in our culture, because you can drown. You can drown here. You can drown in bills. You can drown in desire. You can drown in so many things. You want to keep your lungs clear. Yeah, it's pretty much the size of it. Just want to let you know how I felt when that friend of mine told me, Billy, you're not a consumer, you are a producer. And I started expanding on the thought and realizing how much difference it does make. Also, I know that when I was talking about the new car and the cost of the photovoltaic system and stuff here, people have been asking me, well, what's it cost and so on. And well, I've told them that there was no cost spared. We spent about as much money as you possibly can on the system. I generally do things that way. I like durability. I like quality. You will not find me shopping, for bargain basement things. I buy what I know is going to do the job and keep doing the job, and whatever it costs, doesn't really matter. I see money as a rather abstract quality because it runs off printing presses to begin with, and as far as how we make it, a lot of how we make it is just, it's services offered, rendered somehow or another, whether it's your body or whether it's a material or whether it's a service or whatever it is. And then say, well, here's some money back in exchange for what you did, My idea in economics throughout my entire life has always been when I hit a point where it didn't look like I had enough money to do that, instead of saying, I don't have enough money for that, or thinking, I'll just never be able to do that. We're taking a negative attitude. Instead, what I would do would be, I need to make more money. That's been my solution, basically, to any economic problem I have ever had. Is that rather than, going to the bank to borrow or putting it on the credit card or things like this, I just usually come up with some way of just making more money. It's real simple. It's quite abstract, actually. You get used to looking at it that way. Money begins to lose a lot of its value to you. It is really it smells bad. People carry it in their wallets and their back pockets. Ugh, money stinks. Here in Puna, most of the money smells like mildew because it's all been damp. I don't like the smell of money, and I do not like handling it. What I do like is what I can get for it. And so that's what I'm focused on. Aloha. I hope that maybe I said something that made some sense and might, motivate a few of you to get yourself in a little bit better position in life. I hope so, because I sure as heck am happy about where I ended up. Hang loose, folks. See you later.